Right. Good evening, viewers. Uh, I think we'll have to mute the others. Yeah. Good evening, viewers. Today we have with us Sanjay Dixit, a very famous speaker from India. Speaker is a very, very small word. Somebody who has written beautiful books like Krishna Trilogy and now The Unbreaking of India, which is a very unusual title. When I read it, what do you mean by Unbreaking India? And then I went on listening to it and then I realized, yes, it is so very important first to unite. And for that, first is unbreaking. And the various understanding of when I listen to his lectures, there is what is known as Jaipur Dialogues every Wednesday. There is a program with Vibhuti Jha, but Jaipur Dialogues is a beautiful program where we get information about all about India, everything that you want to know about India, its history, the culture, the civilization, the current affairs, everything. I think you get the information. And the kind of people who come there, even the viewers, are so well read. That's what I was just now telling Vibhuti, that sometimes I note down the questions and then I go back and read out because I do not know what are they talking about. That is the kind of knowledge that the viewers have. So I can understand if somebody is hosting that show day in and day out, there are times that I think full day he is engaged in one or the other talk shows. Thursday when I called him, that's what I came to understand, that every Thursday it's a full day for him. At least 4 shows he has in the day. So that is the kind of veteran we have. And Vibhutija, you know him already. He is a veteran in international affairs and also, relation banking and so many other kinds of expertise, in addition to, of course, cultural studies and also human potential. So we are here on a beautiful journey, Sanjayji, because we are exploring what are our strengths. Because now we realize that many Indians, or even the present generation or the younger generation, many of them just are into making and living and spending. That's it. People are so tied down with routine affairs that they are not exposed to, say, religious texts. They are not exposed to history. And whatever we have studied is only what we have been taught to us in school. And it is very minuscule and it's very often distorted versions. This we realize after so many years. So we thought that this is the best time to introduce. Actually, this particular show by Varun Kapur was started at the unfortunate demise of Sushant Singh Rajput. So he started this, and then he was telling me when we were talking, he said, "You always feel that we should inspire the youth, and we want to tell them about what is the strength of our nation." So we are talking about our culture, our various, itihas, and how to bring about awareness about these things. It is in this context that I've invited you, because I understand that there can be nobody better than you here, because I have listened to your lectures on Sanatan Dharma, and we have given a few rudimentary lectures or sessions on that. Myself and Vibhuti Jha have been talking about those sessions. But today we want to get some basic, fundamental, in-depth knowledge, because many of your viewers, our viewers, a lot of, there is lack of clarity about what different religions say, how are different religions different. you know Very often we say, Vasudeva Kudumpaka. We say, the entire humanity is one. Even when we come home and we tell about any differences that take place in school or college, our parents have always said, just forget about all that, everybody is the same. So this is what we have always listened to and grown up. Probably because of that, we have not become sensitive to what is going on around us, and we have been suddenly taken unawares by the developments that are happening, and it has taken us by storm and into a shock. So at least the present generation should be aware of our strengths so that they go back to the roots. So with this request, let us start the session. So my first this thing is this question, again coming back to this: all religions are same. This is what many of the us have grown up listening to. Though we all agree that we need to respect people following different religions, all religions are not the same. That is very, very clear after I listen to you. And nobody better than you to explain that. And of course, Vibhuti also will, as usual, add his, elements of practical examples and observations. So look forward to the session from both of you. Thank you, sir.
I'm very glad to be here on your show, Girijaji,
Thank you,
and
sir. It's our
I'll
show.
try my best, whatever I can enlighten people with.
Yeah. So when we talk about, all religions are same, all religions are equal, why is it that we say it is not true, right? So we need to probably make people understand how are things different.
See, when we say that all religions are the same,
Yes.
then we are talking of religions being same in different frameworks, first of all,
Yes.
that we have to understand the frameworks. Now, I'll tell you all that, how the frameworks are different. First of all, there are two frameworks. There is the
Yes.
inclusive framework and there is the exclusive framework. So
Okay.
the inclusive framework have all the dharmas, or what we call the dharmic systems.
Yes.
So they're strictly speaking not really religions, because the framework is different. The framework of what is called religion is different. Those are
Yes.
exclusive prophetic religions. So they have a book, they have a prophet. Their God is, well, in his own wisdom. He doesn't like to communicate with the human beings or with other beings at all. Of course, he doesn't even recognize other beings, because other beings are there all only for the consumption of the human beings. In fact, a human being is a kind of a monoculture. So that framework, so the two frameworks are completely different, first of all. That is
Yes.
this inclusive dharmic framework. Uh, this says that we are all one at the level of consciousness.
Yes.
So when we say that Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, then we are all one at the level of consciousness.
Yes.
But that applies only to the consciousness framework. It doesn't apply to the intellectual framework of the Abrahamic exclusive religions of the what is called the prophetic religions. We also
Yes.
call them prophetism at times. Mm. Because,
Yes.
as I said, that in his own wisdom, the Abrahamic God or Allah, uh, I think either doesn't like or feels it is below his dignity to talk
Yeah.
to his wards directly. So he has to have somebody intervening on his behalf.
Yes.
That's why they
Right.
have to have a prophet, and then
Prophet.
the problems within the prophetic religions are not on the basis of they do not differ they do not differ as far as the basic story is concerned. The basic story is the same, either whether you have Judaism, Yahweh,
Yes.
or you have the Christian God, whether it is Unitarian or Trinitarian, but the story remains the same.
Yes.
And then when you come to Islam, or I prefer to call it Mohammedanism rather than
Yes.
Islam. Islam is actually,
Okay.
they call it because Islam, uh, in some roundabout way, means peace. So
Yeah.
they needed to kind of give it some kind of a veneer of peace. So they started calling it Islam. But if you go back only 30, 40 years ago, nobody used to, uh, nobody
Zubard Islam.
was
Yes.
using this term. They were all using just the term Mohammedanism.
Right.
Difficult to pronounce, actually. So, uh, so that is so one is an intellectual
Background.
framework, and the other
Yes.
is a consciousness framework. So the basic frameworks are different. That is one. Then
Right.
we come down to the basic concepts, the fundamental, the concepts of, and of course you mentioned this Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Now
Yes.
Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is a consciousness concept, and that
Yes.
is applicable only within the framework.
Yeah.
And you cannot compare it with the intellectual framework, because when you do that, there's a beautiful story in Hitopadesh which actually makes fun of people
Okay.
talking about Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam
Okay.
in everyday life. It doesn't work in the everyday life, because in everyday life you are not on the plane of consciousness, you're sitting on the plane of basic intellect, or even lower
Logic.
on the
Logic.
plane
Yeah.
of emotions.
Yes.
So it simply doesn't work. In fact, that story I have narrated a number of times. The Jaipur Dialogues episode, you could just, append it in the description. Uh,
Okay.
but the some substance of that is that don't be foolish. Don't apply
Yes.
Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam in your everyday life. Because the basic, this Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam was actually first spoken of in a text called Mahopanishad. It is
Yes.
one of the minor Upanishads. And in Mahopanishad, the context was Raja Janak actually giving Brahma Gyan to Shukadev ji, the son of Vedavyas ji.
That's
So
yes.
he was sent actually to Raja Janak to get all the Brahma Gyan. And it is in that context that he tells him, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. They are talking about the Brahma Gyan. So at the level of Brahma Gyan, at the level of Tattva Gyan, at the level of Brahma Tattva, definitely Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam will apply. But it will
Yes.
not apply at your level of emotions and that has been made clear in that Hitopadesh story. In fact, it makes fun of people who use Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam in everyday life. So,
Okay.
okay, that was only an aside because you mentioned that. Now, coming
Yes.
to the fundamental differences, they because of the frameworks, there are differences galore, and I have counted at least 7 fundamental differences. The
Okay.
7 fundamental differences are what? The first of all is the level of what is called the uh, scientific
Yeah.
attitude. Dharma is often called a science. Why? Not because uh, it is like physics or chemistry or something, but because the fundamentals of science are
In spirit
the
of inquiry and openness.
yes,
Right?
what it
Yeah.
says, in fact, if you go to the fundamental definitions of scientific methodology, what is it? It is supposed to be uh, verifiability, universality, and repeatability. And the most important these days, of course, is called falsifiability
Yes.
or rebuttability. That is, you have the freedom to
To question.
actually try and rebut a proposition or rebut a principle. If there is a principle, then you have full freedom to rebut it. Whether you are able to
Yes.
do it or not is a different matter. But
Yes.
there is no restriction on you trying to
Do
rebut
that.
a principle. You can
Yeah.
try.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
in fact, what is current these days that the Karl Popper theory of scientific investigations, it actually puts falsifiability at number one. That is what is the basic symptom of open inquiry. Now, that's not available in the framework of that intellectual framework of Abrahamic religions. Inquiry is not permitted. The moment you start inquiry, you start getting threats. Either you, if nothing, of course, the Christianity also used to do that. They used to burn people's stakes. It's not doing that anymore, but it still tells people that you will go to hell. And of course, beheading is still very common as far as the Mohammedanism is concerned. So
Yes.
that is one. And the
Yes.
second is the time concept.
Yes.
The time concept of the consciousness systems is very different from the intellectual systems. We have the time concept of what is called the quasi-cyclical concept,
Yeah.
where, of course, I won't go very deep into it because there is a difference between what is called eternal recurrence and the liberation recurrence. We follow what, let me just uh, assert this that our cyclical time concept is what is called a quasi-cyclical time concept. In the Abrahamic religions, it is a very, very unscientific, proven wrong that there is a creator there is a finite creation and it runs its course few thousand years. Zoroastrianism put it at 10,000 years. Christianity puts at about 6,000 years. And every few, every 100 years, they keep giving a new date. The last date was given by Isaac Newton, that was 1920. Now we are in 2021, 101 years over. Now they're not giving any new date. Then it, during the lifetime of Prophet Muhammad, he had given a rough date of about 100 years for the earth to end. And in fact, all his systems were designed to cater for those 100 years. Now that 100 years is now what? It's 1300 years over. And they are still following those systems and saying that nothing can be changed, it is immutable, and you cannot change a word in the book of God. Of course, its historical validity is a different matter altogether. There are a lot of question marks even on that. But then inquiry is not permitted. As simple as that. So that's point number two. Then point number three is the what is called the logic concepts. The logic concepts in the consciousness systems and intellectual systems again different. In the consciousness systems of the dharmic variety, it is always either three valued or more. Three valued means that there is no clear black and white, there's always a gray in between. And in fact, one of the most popular logical frameworks that we use in the dharmic system is called Chatushkoti. Chatushkoti means uh, there is something called false and there's something called the truth. So between falsehood and truth, there are two intervening stages. That the first intervening stage, it is beautifully called Sanjay. You understand the meaning of Sanjay, doubt. And that is mm, it is called mm, uh, mm, neither neither false nor true. That is the state of Sanjay. And the next stage is called Shraddha. That Shraddha is loosely translated as faith, but it is something much more than that because faith is blind and Shraddha is experiential. And yes, once I mentioned that, I also mentioned that the consciousness framework is an experiential framework. And the other framework, the Abrahamic religion framework, is an intellectual framework. So there's basically intellectual framework, experiential framework. Then you can call it this experiential, you can call it consciousness framework as well. So in the intellectual frameworks, there are only two values, the binary values, either yes or no. Either it's true or it's false. And how it is determined? We go to the fourth one. The fourth one is the concept of the proof or the epistemology. So the epistemology, when we say the binary systems, yes or no systems, or true, false systems, it's very simple. Whatever is written in the book is true. Whatever is not in the book is false. So simple. So in fact, the intellectual systems are designed for intellect. I often say that it is designed for IQ of less than 75, actually. But but then a lot of bright people also like to go down to that IQ and use it that way. And in the experiential system, the consciousness system, uh, it is very clear. I mean, so many times I have said this so many times. In fact, I say that every day. That has been in the morning during my walk. I repeat it again and again. And what is that? It says that the direct experience is the experience, is the pramana, is the proof. There is nothing to beat direct evidence. That's very much accommodates what is called the scientific method. Pratyakshe inagamo vidna. Pratyaksham yeteyor moolam. Pratyaksham yeteyor moolam. Kratante etihiyorapi. That is, let me break it up for you. Pratyaksham hi एतिहियो मूलम. Okay, pratyaksham hi eteyo means both. Moolam, the root of both meaning etihiyo. Etihiyo is tradition, and pratyaksham hi eteyo moolam kritante etihiyo. Kritant means anuman. Anuman means inference. So the direct evidence is at the root of both. And pratyakshena bhinna. Pratyakshena agamo. Agam, you understand? I think everybody understands agam.
Yes.
Agam is again tradition, same as eti in this context. So pratyakshene agamo bhinna kritanto va na kinchana. So if agam and kritant, that is the inference, are different from your direct experience, then that is not permitted. It, na kinchana. It cannot be. That's what it says. And so much so that so much value put on direct experience, because again, the direct evidence is also of two type. When we are talking about consciousness principles, it is of two type. One is experiential and the other is empirical. The empirical is one that you get from your own senses, and experiential is that which you get, which is confined to your own consciousness. And that is when you reach what is called the chitta level of yours, Man, Buddha, Chit, Ahankara, Chitta, those four levels of Vak, or levels of what is called, in Vak it is called Vaikari Madhyama Pashyanti Para. So when you are at the highest level of your own self consciousness, that is the time that you get that experience, that you're able to get that experience. And that experience, unfortunately, uh, cannot be uh, related to somebody. You can only guide the other person to achieve that same experience. So all our Vedas, Upanishads, and all that, they are all trying to guide everybody to that experience. Of course, in empirical plane, obviously, through your senses, what you can see, what you can experience, what you can feel, that the other person can also feel. So that direct evidence is the highest evidence. Gita, it says, uh, a lot of people have a lot of things to say, but they forget that 2.46 Bhagavad Gita, it says, Yava anarthe udapane sarvatah samplutodake tavan sarveshu vedeshu brahmanasya vijanatah. Let me just summarize it. It just says that somebody who has experienced the Brahma, he doesn't need even the Vedas. So you can see that you transcend the book. A lot of people, even among the traditionalists, I have a lot of problem with the trad variety. I've had a lot of run-ins with the Paramparavadas. And, but they have no answer to this. Okay, so Bhagavad Gita, which is treated as the essence of all Upanishads. I think the Prasthanatrayi, as we say, the Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, and Brahma Sutra, it is given, nobody has disputed that level. In fact, at the end of every adhyaya in Bhagavad Gita, it says, Om Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Supanishatsu, Sa Upanishatsu. That is, this Upanishad, in this Upanishad. Sa Upanishatsu, in this Upanishad. Srimad Bhagavad Gita is treated as an Upanishad. In fact, it is the essence of all Upanishads. And you can see it everywhere. If you go through the smaller Upanishads, of course, I won't prescribe the bigger ones, the Chandogya and the Brihadaranyaka. They are too huge. But Gita Press has a beautiful book that called Ishadi No Upanishad, the nine smaller Upanishads. And whatever is there in those Upanishads, you can find its reflections in the Gita. Very simple.
Sanjay ji, it has been an outstanding exposition that you gave to Sanatan Dharma and the way it
I
is.
haven't finished though.
Oh, you're not finished though. Okay, good. Go ahead. I also wanted to
Only 4 out of 7.
wanted to also put it in the perspective that the knowledge, how it is relevant today, and we will get into that later after you have finished off.
Yeah, certainly. So the other three, I treat them as fundamental, but then they are fundamentals also because if the first four are not there, then these fundamentals, so they're semi-derivative kind of things. And that's, of course, a cosmology, the infinite cosmology that we have, that Purnamadam, Purnamidah, Purnat, Purnamudachyate. Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. That is the first expression of infinity, and it is there in the Ishopanishad. So, that expression of infinity basically also related to the breadth of time concepts that we have. So it is because of that concept that we can visualize our Brahmand as infinite multiverse. It's not even one universe, it is a multiverse kind of a situation. And the beauty is that we can visualize that Brahmand within our brains, the cosmos within the brains. Yat pinde tat brahmande. So that is the way that we can visualize the infinite into the infinitesimal. So that is the cosmological concept that we have. And then we have the eschatology. That eschatology, of course, was also the eschatology, the theory of death. That also is related to time concepts in a way. You can call it a derivative, but I treat it as a fundamental because otherwise it becomes difficult to explain to people. And that is where the concepts of rebirth, concepts of moksha, and all that come in. And another related concept is, of course, the immanence of divine. That immanence of divine, why I treat this as a separate concept is because it is very clearly very different from the Abrahamic religions. Uh, uh, I talked about eschatology. The eschatology for them is the last day of judgment. And I may also mention that ultimately uh, the concept of death in Sanatan Dharma leads to liberation. Yat karma tan nanibhatnat sa vidya ya vimuktaye. So the karma is that which actually liberates. And same thing, the vidya is that which liberates. And you have to have that complete view. You cannot have one view. As again, I think it is probably, yeah, Ishopanishad only that says that vidyam cha yastada vedo bhayamsa. Vidya and avidya, you need to know both together. Just knowing one will not do. Because avidyaya mrityortitva vidyaya mritamashnuте. That's through avidya. Avidya in this sense is termed that termed in the what is called in this context of karma, and uh, vidya is contextualized as jnana. So through karma, you go through, or you you go through your death through the karma, and through vidya you achieve immortality. One of the most beautiful Upanishadic verse that I have seen. In fact, there's a cognate also. It says that sambhutim cha vinasham cha yastad vedo bhayam sah vinashen mrityortitva sambhutya mritamashnuте. So sambhuti is the what is called the indestructible Brahman. And when say the vinasham cha, that vinash is the mortal earth, or whatever is mortal. Now you need to know them together in order to become immortal. So these are the beautiful concepts that have in the term of our death theory. But in Abrahamic religions, death means an eternal bondage. That is the eternal bondage of hell oblique heaven. So, the death in the Abrahamic religion, in their finite time concepts, death leads to an eternal bondage. Then there is no freedom from it. So, you have a liberating concept and you have a binding concept. And to that is related what is called the immanence of divine. Because for the consciousness framework or the experiential framework, uh, the divine is within, and you can discover the divine within And in fact, it is often a journey of discovering the infinite within the your infinitism. In fact, in one of the Upanishads, the Kathopanishad, I think it says that, okay, that the angushtaya, that like your thumb. So the Parameshwar is within your Atma in the size of a thumb, something like that. It is there, I think, Kathopanishad. There, the Yamaraj is giving Upadesh to Nachiketa. So these are, and of course, in the Abrahamic religion, the creator is completely different, completely separate from the cosmos. He can never be one with the cosmos. Of course, there's a history there as well, because that is not something from day one. That also has evolved, both in the Christianity as well as in Islam. But that's, I think maybe somebody will ask a question or something that will come up. Then we will take that up. So that is from me, the long opening statement.
No, that was that. You see, this is what is important to know, that you refer to avidya and vidya, right? That's what we call in the modern parlance, we say learning. We're perpetually on the learning curve. And what we say is the first step of learning is that when you acknowledge within yourself that I don't know. That's the most important part, that we must learn, that we don't know. It's not possible to know everything. And in a normal mundane life, we are expected to supposedly know everything. And one of the things which I always experience in Indian context is every Indian knows everything, including me. आप हमें क्या सिखाएंगे, हमें आता है. So, that's something which has seeped into our body politic. And that's what is important. So the 7 enunciations of Sanatana Dharma and why all religions are not equal is remarkable. I tell my Western people that Sanatana principles are beyond religious rigmaroles, beyond religious mandates. You talk about diversity, we talk about oneness. So if you are looking at diversity only as a challenge, then you forget the oneness.
The diversity is very much a part of the experiential framework.
Of course it is.
It says, again, I'll quote Upanishad, Ekam Rupam Bahudha Yah Karoti.
Mhm.
Okay, so this is one,
Right.
but in different manifestation.
Absolutely.
Rupam Bahudha Yah
Absolutely.
Karoti Bahudha Rupam.
Right.
Ekam Yah Ekam Karoti Bahudha Rupam.
Correct.
So that is the concept.
That's the concept. And that's what I'm trying to say is that, within the diversity, there is oneness, and within oneness, there is diversity. This is something that we must understand. And that's what the universal thing about Sanatana Dharma is all about. And I'm a total believer in God. I'm a total deplorable about religion, because I feel it is one of the biggest organized mafias operating around the world, because it preys upon ignorance and ignorance and fear. So that's not the way. I mean, in contemporary world, and to bring it down to the basic level, Sanatana Dharma is all about total non-discrimination. Total non-discrimination. It is gender. It is total neutrality, insofar as gender, color, caste, wherever you are. We are all same. There is no distinction. And that's where the entire concept operates, that there are universal joys, universal concerns, and universal happiness. In the universe, I shouldn't say even, animals love their newborn as much as humans love their newborn. Any distinction in there? No. This is called universal joy. Suffering, a loss of a near and dear one, is universal. That we want our children to succeed is universal. These are universality of life that we must acknowledge. And talking about religion, yes, I believe that it was brought about in the name of God. Nobody has ever seen God. Begin to quote God as if God said, "You must follow that." That's the challenge that we are facing right now.
Forget about seeing the God. Even if you try, you will be beheaded. Don't even
Yes.
think of trying it.
So that's what we are saying. Girija, anything that you want to say here?
Yeah. See, when we say seeing God is an experience, we have admitted, say, for example, in Andal, say she says she used to make garlands, and then she herself, her father got angry with her. How can you wear the garland first before you put it to God? Andalvar, you must have heard about it, right? Iyengars. So there, she then God manifests in front of her. So there are so many Bhakti Marg people who have said that they have experienced God, and nobody questions him. Nobody says that I'm here to disprove that you saw God. Seeing God is, you can see God perhaps in some other child, you may see God in some other human being. So it is not necessary that God in God form, as I have seen, is what you will see. So this is acceptable in Sanatan Dharma. This is the most beautiful thing that I have seen, that when somebody says that I have seen God in my mother, that also we accept, right? So Pundari, uh, in Pandharpur, that is
Wonderful.
what Pandharpur. We say that the deity there, he came there to find out who is the person who really worships his parents, who really respects his parents. He comes there and then he finds that there is somebody who doesn't care about God. God says, I'm waiting outside for you. He says, first, let me serve my parents. Right? So we have seen this in different forms with different stories. We have heard this and we have accepted that. Like Mira, so many of them have experienced God, and we don't question that. We don't say that God cannot be seen or God cannot be experienced. But it is for one's own, it is left to them to experience. It is personal. And we don't even say that you should have knowledge to experience God. Sometimes you just
Quite right.
experience.
Quite right.
And you may not have read the scriptures, you may not know anything. It is just like you may be good at operating the computer, but you don't know anything about the systems.
Quite right.
Same way, you don't know anything about the scriptures, but you experience God. People have done it. Yes.
So
Absolutely.
that's beautifully said. What I want to say is also that there is a deeper sense to explain. But for
Yeah.
us NRIs living abroad, or thanks to technology, we are all connected from Delhi, Mumbai, and New
Yes.
York here. My thing is that we are making Jaipur dialogues a reality in USA as well. The whole idea is to share the thought, knowledge, and propagate the Hindu perspective, the Sanatan perspective, our own narrative.
Yes.
What must today those viewers are listening to it? How must Sanatan Dharma be explained in simple language for us to understand so that
Exactly.
we can talk about it? I have my own definition, but what, in your opinion, Sanjayji, that you will tell the NRI groups or any Indian for that matter, is that how best in 2 sentences or 3 sentences, with what ease one can explain to normal people who just say and attract them to study that.
You know, the explanation that I have given is actually an explanation for the rationalist.
Right.
And I think that should work the best for your NRI group. Why? Because the NRI group somehow they think that they are beyond emotion, and certainly they're not even into consciousness. I think they probably consider that as something of balderdash. So I think this is the best approach. And that is why that little booklet that I've written, All Religions Are Not the Same, is quite a rage on the internet. I think I wrote that about 2 years back and on the Medium blog. Now, of course, it is on the Jaipur Dialogue website as well. And
So,
that's still
if I can say
has the
something,
highest download rate
yeah,
of all my writings. I'm not talking about the books because the books are in a different framework altogether. But
yeah,
of all my writings, that is the one that gets downloaded the most, and already about 500,000 downloads
right,
overall.
yeah,
So I think that works the best because to lead somebody to experience requires a guru, and the real gurus are very difficult to find these days. But somebody who is at an intellectual plane, for them, this kind of explanation should suffice. And we can use this to explain various other concepts also, such as Murti Puja, that can be very well explained within this framework without any hassle.
Murti Puja and the concepts of heaven and hell, the difference between the soul and Atma, you have explained in different lectures so
Concept of heaven and
beautifully.
hell are basically Abrahamic concepts.
Yes.
And
How is it different in Sanatan Dharma and the other Abrahamic religion? But
yeah,
please explain that in a very simple language, like you have done in certain other episodes that I've seen. You know, you have explained so beautifully how it is not going to be, it is not permanent. You touched upon it right now, but if you can elaborate that.
see, the Swarga and Naraka, the concept that we have, uh, they cannot be permanent because of the nature of the time concept that we have. And it is only an intermediate stage of transportation. So while you are transporting, the atma is transporting from one body to another body. So it is a temporary stage where either you exhaust your punyas or you exhaust your papas, and then you go on. Unless you have achieved liberation, unless you have realized the divine within, it is then you can get off the time cycle. Why? Because it is a quasi cyclical time. You want to go deeper into it, you got to read my that little booklet. It is
Yes.
very well explained there. So that liberation happens. You get off the time cycle. So you become one with the divine. So
So,
that's what happens. That Om Tat Sat. So you get one with Tat.
yes.
But in the Abrahamic religions, the heaven and hell is a permanent physical concept.
There is no rebirth, and
There
so
is
they
no
are
reason.
permanently assigned to hell or heaven.
You're permanently bound either to heaven or to hell. It's great for controlling the minds of your followers, because
Okay.
the interjector, the alim or ulama, malana, mufti, muhaddis, mujaddid, whoever he is, the caliph, they can always keep threatening people. Look, I am the agent, and I will recommend to uh, the prophet, because prophet is the one who will recommend to Allah. So these are the people who will recommend to the prophet on the day of last judgment that you go to hell. So people are eternally scared. In Sanatan Dharma, people always, careless people, they say, okay, it doesn't matter. Even if I go to Narak in this birth, and maybe I can do something better in the next birth or something. So that kind of attitude
So there
is
is
there.
always hope, and it is also
So
redeemable.
I'll just
Redeemable.
explain to you.
Yeah.
So the whole thing is that and you even see that in the book of the Christians, or book of the uh, Mohammedans, that they always fear God.
Yeah.
There is mortal fear of God, and the God, oblique Allah, also keeps telling, be afraid of me, be afraid of me, be afraid of me. Why? Because I have the capacity to put you into permanent hell.
Burning in hell.
The Ishwar or the Brahma has no capacity to put you in permanent hell or permanent heaven. You will earn that through your karma only. So that is why, in the end, even in Gita, uh, towards the end, Krishna gives his message. He says, Ma Shucha, do not fear. So the message in Sanatan Dharma is, do not fear. You can be you can be a friend, you can be a bhakt. The bhakti is a beautiful concept. These idiots, these Lutein idiots, when they say Bhakt, they do not even understand what they're talking about.
That's right.
They basically mentally challenge people. So I tell them, I have given them open challenge, come and discuss. They don't, because they don't have the capacity. And I give that dare to any pader or any Maulana as well. Come and discuss. They won't, because they come with those dogmas, and those dogmas are self-evident truths to them. For me, they are not self-evident truths. You got to prove them, and you have to allow them to be falsified. They don't allow them to be falsified either. So there cannot be any argument with these people. The framework of this proof system is very different. The logic is very different. The basic concepts are different. So how do you argue with these people? Sorry, I lost track. Where was I?
The logic of it.
Sorry?
No, you were talking about the whole concept of heaven and hell, the condemnation of people to hell or heaven or hell. That's right.
Heaven and hell concept. So that's
called indentured
I was saying
servitude.
that the concept is do not fear versus be very afraid.
Correct.
That is another big difference.
Right.
So how, Vibhutiji, you would like to enlighten people about how ruling people by fear is something that is not acceptable these days. That is why you find that Abrahamic religions, they have to propagate, by force. They are trying to do that. You find that in several countries, they're afraid that Christianity is dying out. They're afraid because the young generation cannot be attracted by fear, cannot be bound by fear and say, okay, if you don't do this, this is what you'll get. If you do this, this is what you'll get. No. So what is your take on that?
My take is real operating from the ground levels. Because what is important here is to remember that we all talked about this. Sanjay ji elaborated big time, and I believe in the same theory that you can't be God-fearing. I tell people I love God. I'm not God-fearing. I'm a God. I love God. Because whatever He has given me, I'm grateful to that. Whatever He's made me, I'm grateful to that. So this, and I also earlier said that the entire Abrahamic faith depends on ignorance, relies upon controlling people because of their ignorance and fear. As Sanjay ji said, you will be condemned to hell. Or you need the, what Shashi Tharoor said, coach class travel. I will send you to hell in a subaltern class, or I will send you to heaven in a coach class, first class, or business class. He issues a ticket. So breaking down the philosophy at ground levels, you realize that now, because of the advancement in science and technology, the fear and ignorance is going away. Literally and figuratively speaking, the veil of ignorance is falling. Masks aside, mask is put on with knowledge to avoid something. Veil is put out of ignorance. That's the difference that people are now realizing. Give the credit to West. You see, you always learn from others. I believe in it. I learn from everybody else around me. So what I learned from the Western people, the Christian people, is very simple. They were very strong in innovations, scientific discoveries. They wanted to prove that they are bigger than God. The joke in West is, in America particularly, why God doesn't claim to be a doctor. God doesn't claim that He is a doctor, because doctor solves all problems. God doesn't solve all problems. You have to solve your own problem. So as the science and technology has advanced, people realize God has nothing to do with that. Actually, fear and ignorance is going away. This has no religious monopoly, right? When you are at the doctor's table, there is no Islamic cancer or Christian cancer or a Hindu cancer. Cancer has one name. So this body in which consciousness lives, life lives, is made up of one element, the sufferings, and that's what the universality of sufferings and joys are there. So now people in the West are saying, I don't need to go to church because I know what is happening. Has anybody ever blamed God for tsunami or floods or cyclones that cause death and destruction? Nobody blames God ever. But it is important here to remember that breaking down of this, the breaking down of the religion is happening because of science and technology. And we Sanatanis must welcome that, because we believe in it. That's what natural law is all about. That's the important part, is happening in the West a lot. That's why churches are falling vacant. Nobody's going there. And people ask this question. At a lower level, people ask, where is God when I needed him to be saved? That's the important part. And if you bring in the call of karma, then then their faith gets shaken, because we believe in karma, right? So the musicians may call karma is a B, but we know karma is not a B. It is your act of who you are. You are defined by who you are. That's why we say that you can't kill 20 people and say, I did it in the name of God, so I'm going to heaven. No, heaven and hell is right here. Your karmas and your action defines you who you are. So I've said this to people, that let's take one simple example. I said this real term. तुम्हारा बंदा 15 बार नमाज पढ़ के बम उड़ाता है समाज में, right? I don't go to the temple every day, but that day I save 5 people, take them to the hospital. So from your definition, who is Khuda ka banda? Me or your guy who killed those 15 people? The answer lies there. And that's what is important, that we have to begin to make inquiries. Let's not question. Questioning is a very dangerous word. Questioning means I'm questioning your authority. But if I make an inquiry of you, then it begins to make sense. So I ask a very simple question, that in 21st century, do you still believe in the concept of 72 virgins? And I keep quiet. That's what is the thing called engaging in a conversation. And it's time, I sincerely believe, our time has come. Sanatan Dharma's time, for us Hindus or us Sanatanis, we have to take the word forward. There is no choice on it. We have to take that word forward. It's important.
Yeah, actually, let me just explain it. Those who know Hindi, all these huris and things, those kinds, those are basically peripheral derivatives. They are not the fundamental concepts, they are the derivatives. Uh, those who know Hindi, they should watch my interaction with Dr. Ajay Chungu yesterday. I think he explains it very beautifully in very simple terms. And he said that, I'll speak in Hindi, कि एक तरफ ही सिद्धांत है और एक तरफ भी सिद्धांत है. उनका कहना है कि अल्लाह ही है, किताब ही है और पैगंबर ही है. और हम कहते हैं कि भगवान भी है, वेद भी हैं, महापुरुष भी हैं. So what you have said can be summarized in Hindi in these very simple terms. And of course, I think we are already at 53-minute marks. I don't know how much more time you have. So we can always discuss the derivatives at some other time. I think today.
I think there are a lot of inquiries are coming. So let's address those inquiries, and that will also address a lot of issues involved.
Yeah, okay, sure.
Yeah.
So how do you take the questions?
Girijaji can't hear you. You have muted yourself, looks like.
Yeah, I have muted myself. Yes. So there is a difference between Hinduism good and hindutva evil. Communist liberals use this to counter Sanatanis. What are your thoughts on this?
Sanjay.
This is asked by some Arun
What thoughts
Art.
you want me to express to stupid assertions? I did a spoof of the originator of this evil, and that was Mr. Shashi Tharoor. And you can recommend to everyone to watch that, and you can see. I kept asking him for a counter. He's not come up with a counter because he doesn't have any. So this is basically trying to reduce the consciousness framework to a binary, a multi-valued system to a binary. That is what it is, in
Yes,
fundamental terms.
very true. Here is a question: all abrahamics being used by liberals or vice versa in their respective sides have a mega gadbandhan.
Mahagathbandhan.
Mahagathbandhan.
Omega.
Maha, Maha, they have
Mahagathbandhan.
written Maha Gadbandhan. We know how that goes. So,
Yeah, we know how that goes. We know
Yeah.
that
yes,
birds of this the same kind flock together.
absolutely. Here is somebody who has mentioned yes. Uh, we have ordered 10 plus books of Unbreaking India to distribute amongst the family. It is very enriching. That's
Thank you,
lovely.
Aranji. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Lovely. Very nice. Only pure logic can bring young Hindus back to Sanatan, not belief. Do you agree?
I actually, when you asked me that question, and I said that about NRI, Vibhuti ji asked me that question, and I said that I am addressing people who fancy themselves to be at the plane of intellect, fancy themselves. Okay, so that's why I am using this particular medium, and logic is cool, you know.
Yes.
Reason, rationality, these are all cool things. So the Hindus who fancy themselves as intellectual can only be brought back to Sanatan through these cool methods. You can't bring them back through rituals and mantras and all, because they don't even understand what you're talking about. But if you
Yes.
speak to them English, preferably fine English,
Yeah.
which they think you're speaking better than them,
Yeah.
then they will probably, first thing that they will do is probably listen to you. And when they listen to you, they find you talking sense in the sense of
That
at an
relatable.
intellectual level, at an
Yes.
intellectual level,
Yes.
then you start communicating. Otherwise, you don't even communicate. So this is my communication framework, basically.
Right.
So, yeah, so in that sense, Vipunji is right.
Yes. We need to speak their language to reach them. Yes. I do not know
That's why.
whether
That's
you
I
why.
don't
do.
know how to speak woke language. Maybe Vibhuti ji can assist me later on.
Yeah, that is the biggest export of United States cultural revolution right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other part is also very important, Girijaji, that to speaking to the young Hindus back here.
Yes.
There is you learn, you de-learn and relearn. You do all those kind of things. So if you have doubts about what you are, if you
Yeah.
have been infiltrated in your mind through education of this variety that pumps into elements that are not true about your own faith. And the classic example is how Audrey Truskay in Rutgers University is spreading canard, and Brown University calls her to speak as if she's an authority on Hinduism and Sanatana and Indian history just because she read Sanskrit. And there's a very fine movie called A Fish Called Wanda, in which Kevin Kline, the American intellectual, who says, I read Nietzsche. And he tells his girlfriend that apes don't read Nietzsche. And she says very nicely, very apt, apes read Nietzsche. They don't understand anything about it. So just because you have read Sanskrit
Read it.
doesn't mean you understand. And that's the
Exactly.
No,
message
no,
we
no. She doesn't understand Sanskrit. She
exactly,
doesn't understand Sanskrit.
exactly,
I can
exactly.
tell you that. Somebody who can translate Agni as physical fire doesn't
Right.
understand Sanskrit.
Exactly.
Because in Sanskrit, if they haven't heard of something called Panchagni Karma, ask them what are the five Agnis. That five Agnis, not one of them is a physical fire.
Correct.
That five Agnis are what? Five Agnis in Sanskrit: Surya, Jal. Heard of this? The five
I
Agnis:
that's important.
Surya, Jal, Sansar, Stri, and Purush. These are the Panchagnis according to our Shastras. So, what Agni is she talking about? She's a fool.
Right.
She is a pure, unadulterated fool who has mugged up Sanskrit without understanding it. As simple as that. That's
Right.
what Audrey Truschke is. And she doesn't even discuss this with anyone because she is not capable of discussing it with somebody who has deep knowledge. But why can't she discuss it if she is really wanting to understand it? Why can't she discuss it somebody like uh, Dr. Subhash Kak or with Rajiv Malhotra? They at least know what these Sanskrit terms mean. No, she won't. She will try and impose her authority on us, which we will not let her. The problem is that the moment they talk about Hinduism, they only talk about what they call symptoms. They
Yes.
will never discuss the fundamentals. And what are those
Nature.
symptoms? Those are those symptoms which they have themselves engrafted on us.
Right.
So they will talk about caste, something that never existed. Okay. I've been
Yes.
challenging people. Nobody is coming up. You can ask Audrey Trushke, or you people can collect maybe 6 lakhs is too less for her. 6 lakh rupees maybe too less for her. So NRIs can contribute and say, okay, we offer 1 crore, come and discuss. Because I think money makes the mayor go. And I can guarantee you that you won't lose that 1 crore. So you can, just play blind. So that is also something that you all can do. Like on Aryan invasion theory, I got commitments of rupees 2.1 crores without any problem because all those who were there, they all understood that these guys have nothing. So that challenge still stands. And at least in Manusmriti, I got 2 emails, though the amount
Okay.
was much less, 6 lakhs. In AIT, I haven't even received an email to claim that.
That is regarding the Aryan civil invasion. That there was no Aryan invasion.
Every time you say caste, sati.
Yes. Yes.
These are
Another
something,
thing that
these are
people.
things that you can refute actually on facts. But then you
Yes.
have to read it up. You have to read.
And
But
that
People
talk
who have
about
not read
maybe people.
Manusmriti, I'll tell you, Dr. Ambedkar himself confessed that he had not read Manusmriti because he did not know Sanskrit. So where did he get
Sanskrit
his um,
information.
all the ideas from? Obviously, he got it from the Indologists. And what were the Indologists doing? The Indologists were all there, and they were setting the frameworks to defame Hinduism so that because in their inner heart they realized that this is one system that can actually challenge them and that can cause the fall of Christianity.
Yes.
So they came up with this. They can only deal with dogmas. So they create dogmas and then throw those dogmas at you. And because they have successfully colonized us mentally,
Yes.
we think they're authorities.
right.
And even science today is what? Even science is authority. Nobody is actually, people who are learning science and technology also, they are not going and experimenting and finding out whether whatever is being taught to them in thermodynamics or in mechanics is actually correct or not. They
Right.
just take it as truth. Actually, gospel truth, because gospel truth is the false dogmatic truth.
That's
So
right.
it becomes
Yes.
it becomes gospel truth.
Gospel.
Sanjayji,
So
there is a very
it is
interesting
not scientific truth. For
yeah,
them, it becomes gospel truth.
gospel truth. Yeah.
Yes.
Sanjayji, talking about the truth and knowledge. There is a very nice question by Pramod Mailar. He's saying
Yes.
that how do you introduce Sanatan knowledge to young kids, 7 years and above? So, my thought is something very simple because I have passed through that stage, and that's what is called. First of all, get to know it yourself before you. If you don't know it yourself, if it's not an embodied thing in yourself, you can't teach your children. It's very simple. So get to know most of the parents, and that's what is. I'll tell you. Give you a very simple example. In Long Island here, this is a real thing. So think about implementing it in your workplace. There was a day several years ago, more than 10 years ago, when our children came across and asked us that in our schools, so many things happened about other faiths, but nobody talks about Hinduism. What is Hinduism? And that brought a shock in about 10, 20, 15 parents that, hey, we ourselves don't know anything about our own faith. So we started an actual practice of only 12 families and our children getting together every month to talk about Hinduism, our practices, our faith, doing a havan at the end. Important part was that it was not a Bhojan Pradhan event. We did not meet for food. Met at each other's house only for rice, dal, roti, chawal, achar, and one sabzi, so that there is no pressure on anybody to cook 12, as many course meal. But we would call a pandit, do a puja, and talk about the important event in that particular month, because we always have something going on every month. Talk about that. Believe it or not, it transformed us and our children. So, Pramodji, think about doing something like that so that you get to know and others get to know. That learning, parents and children learning together is the finest thing to happen. And I'd be happy to share with you here that Hindu University of America, these people came on my show and they have started a program, because I had been talking to them that most of the first generation Indians, we ourselves don't know enough about our way of life.
Absolutely. Yes,
So,
yes.
so Hindu University of
Totally agree.
America does an online course for parents and children together, educating them about Hinduism and things like that. So think about it from that, but get to know it. Read Panchatantra stories. Read things to
Yes.
children. Instead of reading Archie comic books, and there are values in our own scriptures. So sit and read together. Parents and children reading some book together. You have no idea what impact it has on learning and relationship between the parents and children. My thoughts.
Absolutely.
I'll just
Yes.
add a
See, I
little.
studied. Yeah. Go ahead.
I'll just add a little bit to this. That of course I agree with Vibhuti ji that actually it is our generation which is probably the most responsible for this state of
Absolutely.
affairs, and we need to make amends. That is one. And second is my thought is that you got to make, as I said, you got to make it cool, and therefore the best way to teach it as science, because science sells, and everybody who can actually tout their system as science uh, actually gets a chip on the shoulder, and you give him a reason to look big or look better than the other guy. And always tell him that, okay, yeah, you are what? You're just a believer. You're a blind believer, blind faith. Our thing is scientific. How it is scientific? Then, of course, all the things, other things, why puja should happen, why Murti puja is important, how it is, all those things come later. The seven fundamentals that I have said, those are the ones that need to be ingrained, because that gives confidence to a child, to a youth. In fact, I designed this whole thing for the youth.
Very true. Um, Also, I feel that with stories, we impact children a lot. When I studied in school, I studied in a up to fifth standard, probably in a Hindu school. Then after that, I was sent to a Christian school because that was the only school where there was English medium available. And believe me, neither in the Hindu school nor in the Christian school there was any reference to any Hindu scriptures or stories or itihas or nothing. Every day
Oh,
morning there used to be Bible
that's our
learning.
Chachaji's legacy.
Yeah. So Bible learning was there. If you want, you can do that. Otherwise, there were moral studies. So the moral stories. That's it. Either it is talking about truth and lies and being good and being a thief and all those kind of things were
Yes, it's
discussed.
simple.
So
In
in fact,
Christianity, it is simple. Truth and lies,
yes,
they come only from the book. So you don't have a concept of relativity there.
yes. So that is what
The
we were fed
theft,
up.
theft is
So
what is defined in the book. It is not like, what, as I often relate this very interesting story about an old village woman who's talking about, I was a young officer, administrative officer recently posted, and just talking about how theft is bad. And she said something which I have never forgotten. That is an object lesson in the uh, multi-valued logic of our tradition. And she said that even Krishna was a thief. What was that? Just think of it. Just reflect on
exactly.
it. And I couldn't sleep for 2 3 days. I was going to look at the wisdom of this old woman and where we are. That is the time that I got my lesson, the first lesson in multi-valued logic. But you can't go by the script of the book.
Exactly.
Because if you start judging, for instance, that is why, in fact, that's what impelled me to write the Krishna trilogy. If you try and judge Krishna from the standpoint of Bible, then he would look like a rogue to you. But if you look at Bible from Krishna's standpoint, the Bible will look like a scandal to you. But you have to understand both the points. And of course, Professor Subhash Kak has proved it mathematically that three-valued logic is better than two-valued logic. So that's that.
Yes. Here, there is a person has posted. I personally feel that since Asian countries, not any country in particular, have a common inherited impact of Sanatan, how can we come together and I believe be a lot more productive and effective?
Well, that is the not even the second stage. That is stage 3. So let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's do the stage 1 first. Let's first understand what we have. I think
Yes.
majority of us do not even understand what we have. Once we understand what we have, then we get ourselves together first, and only after that we can approach the other dharmic societies like Buddhists or Shintoists and all that.
Like you explained, many of us also feel guilt ridden because we are not aware of the various things. Like, for example, they will say, okay, Krishna was called as, he was belonging to the cow herd, and Karna was denounced because he belonged to a lower caste. So, caste system has persisted forever in
That's
Hinduism. This
absolute
is what you
nonsense.
hear, right?
In fact,
Exactly.
people have not even read Mahabharata. All these Christian missionaries have read Mahabharata more than what we have. And what they do is that they read this and then they find that, okay, this is a very
So,
unifying aspect.
so why
So
don't you please throw
try
light
and
on casteism and how it has not been a
I've
part
done
of
that too.
Hinduism?
I have written 2 books on Krishna already. Two out of the third one will come.
Yes,
And there is a long discussion about Karna.
yes,
Long discussion on Karna, on Draupadi, on all these aspects, all these things on which the West particularly tries
yes,
to find a convenient scapegoat.
yes.
So I would
So many
recommend that
Hindus,
if
because they are
people
not,
read my
yes,
books, they will understand.
And it's also that it goes back to the fundamental question is 99% of the time, majority of us, because we do not know our own texts,
exactly.
we are questioned, as Sanjay ji very rightly said, that these people, those who oppose us or who fear us, they have studied our text, they know our weaknesses.
Uh,
Yeah, sorry, you want to say
Let me
something?
It's
sorry,
not,
just
they
one thing.
don't know our
I thought
weaknesses, but I believe
I'll
that
just
they're
explain
looking
because
for
this is
weaknesses.
because Girijaji mentioned uh, that falsehood about Karna not being accepted by Parshuram. Karna was thrown out by Parshuram not because he was not accepted, but because he told him a lie. That's the
Exactly.
reason he threw him out.
Right.
He had the option. He had the
Yeah,
option. He tried a shortcut.
right.
You see, he was a Kshatriya, and he was a Kshatriya. He was trained along with these Pandavas. It's there in Mahabharata.
Yeah.
Uh, but he couldn't beat Arjun, so he went to Parashuram and he pretended because Parashuram had his own rules. Every school has its own rules. So he had its own rules, his own rule that he will teach only Brahmanas. Now, Karna, he had the opportunity in those times to become a Brahmin, but that was a long haul. That would have taken him many years. So he pretended to be a Brahmin and went there. And then he was thrown out when it was discovered. So who's to blame? It's a Karna to blame. I have
So
given a
he
full
was thrown
chapter
out.
in which is Karna's mother Radha and Karna, they have a dialogue. And in those dialogue, uh, all this comes out. And then Radha tells Karna, look, it was your own fault. You were in too much of a hurry. I mean, just as you have become Kshatriya, become Angaraj, you are now a Kshatriya by karma. You really wanted it from
Sure.
Parashuramji, then you should have done the right penance and become a Brahmin. After all, Vishwamitra became a Brahmin. So you chose the shortcut and then you are complaining, playing victim like the Islamists.
That
Same
there's
thing.
no,
I'll
But
tell you about the Eklavya story.
yeah,
This Eklavya story is much touted. Okay, discrimination against tribal. Nonsense.
exactly.
He was the son of Hiranyadhanu, who was the commander of Jarasandha's forces, and the kind of bad blood that the Jarasandha had with everybody else, he simply did not want to empower him. That's all. That's the simple practical explanation. Why would you teach all your secrets to your enemy? He was the enemy commander's son. As simple as that. So, but these are all derivatives. You have to teach them fundamentals first.
right.
Without strong foundations, you cannot go to these derivatives. And of course, you want to learn about these derivatives first, please read my books, the Krishna trilogy books. I
Yes.
think almost every answer will be there.
Right. It's
Yes.
all about knowing yourself first before you go anything else, like
Okay.
atheist DMK down south call Lord
I
Krishna in
know.
such derogatory words, calling him womanizer at all. I would urge
And
every
these, these,
every
these very same people,
yeah,
they they put that what is called that rogue called Periyar. Periyar, of course, is his title. Yes, Ramaswamy Naikar on a high pedestal. A guy who married his own daughter. So if that is the level of what is called their naitik bal or moral fiber, then whatever they can call anyone else doesn't matter to me.
He was an atheist
I
also.
have I have also one more thing to add on a practical level is that when
Yes.
Arunji or anybody else,
Yeah.
let's not call our Bhagwans as Lord. They were not members of House of Lords. They,
Yes.
they were entities in their own right.
Call him
या
Bhagwan.
तो
Or don't call him anything. Just call him Krishna.
just
Krishna
call
is
him
fine.
Krishna, Krishna Ji, Sri Krishna, Bhagwan Krishna, but not Lord. I would say, please, 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 let's all avoid that. If there is one takeaway from here today is to don't call our deities as Lord. They were not members of House of Lords. That was the British English depiction of to derogate to bring down our gods to their member of the House of Lords. Be careful about that. I have also said this in the if you notice in the Western TV, they use the word
That's,
Guru,
that's, that's,
Pandit.
that's another concept which I am not getting into because that
Yeah,
will take half an hour.
that's it. We'll take another day. But for example, we Indians must protest, and I have said this to CNN, Fox, and others, that Guru, Pandit, and Guru, Pandit.
And I'll advise everybody
Yeah.
not to take Devadatta Patnaik seriously.
Yes. 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 He's ultimate evil. Yeah. But the point which I'm trying to make is that tell the media people that Guru, Mantra, Pandit, these are all very important words for us Hindus. You
Yes.
can't use it with a veil or a slay of negativity in your TV propagandas of political gurus and pundits and this mantra. They
Exactly.
give it a negative terminology, negative slant to that. It's a very clever manipulation, and I have written to CNN and Fox, please don't use it in that manner. I hope they respond. But I'm saying that we as a community must protect our words, like our own concepts. No Western media person will ever dare to say, Mr. Muhammad. They will be riots. That's the point
Yes.
which I'm trying to say that if we do not protect ourselves, don't expect anybody else to do so. we have to rise up.
We need to have pride in our own culture, for which it is important for us to know our culture first, to know our scriptures first, to know our itihas first. We don't know. That is the problem. So, like somebody has written here, a serious concern, please help the young generation. So, I think the family only has to help. Recently, I got to know my brother started smoking and working 12 hours a day. He abuses Hinduism all the time, which makes me deeply sad.
Well, just to share with you, even I was an atheist when I was in the age group of 15 to 17. So these are passing phases, but somebody has to engage with him to keep engaging. Even if he continues with that, you have to keep engaging and you know keep trying to reason with him.
Yes, Archana Pal has put two questions. I'm not able to get them. So please, can you give the two questions again, Archana, please? She has said, I'm not able to get it. It's gone past up, I think. So, Bhatt accepted your challenge
Sorry?
on Arya Dravidian Pankam. Did did Eva Evara Butts accepted your challenge? What is it, Evera? Rahul?
Even
Okay.
Wendy
Okay.
Doniger and Audrey Truschke did not accept. You expect these half-wits, dim-wits to accept?
Okay. Suddenly my chat is not coming up. So please, Archana, go ahead and shoot the questions. Yeah, why it is so important, I can just see here. Why is it so important for all legal fraternity to follow Supreme Court all judgments, Supreme Court judgments binding on subordinate courts only? Why proofs are so stuck there only and scared to think out of it?
That's because it's
This
part
is
of the Constitution. Whatever is laid down by the Supreme Court is the law of
huh,
the land, Article 143.
yes. Okay. So maximum people working in legal fraternity from professors to judges level, maximum are of pro-Islamic mindset, and they are spreading such favoritism of Abrahamic faiths in students also. How can we change that? That is again Archana Pal's question.
By strengthening the foundations of your children. And for that, strengthening your own foundations first.
Yes. Another question from Ujjwal Narayan. What about faculty in all Ivy League universities and Antifa?
I know
Just
it's a long haul.
Yeah.
It won't happen in a day.
yes.
And there are two reasons why it is a long haul. One is that fact that there are very few amongst us who rise up with the deep sense of knowledge. And when there are those, then they are opposed because of the syndicate or mafia, as they call it. Because who wants to be? So that's why Sanjay ji is absolutely right. It's a long haul. It won't be an easy battle, but we have to take advantage of the current scenario. For example, I'll give you this example that I said this, every disaster is an opportunity. Coronavirus is one such disaster, which is an opportunity. But coronavirus did not discriminate between any caste, color, religion, nation, boundaries. And on the contrary, all the religious miracle performers are either sitting in a den or a cave somewhere because God didn't listen to any one of them. And as a friend of mine recently said, humans are screwing up the planet Earth, God is taking over. So better watch out, religious practitioners. These are issues that we have to take it at the ground level, take advantage of the opportunity that comes, and move along. But then it is going to be a good long haul, and we are ready for that.
there is one more question that we can take, and probably we can sum up then. Tirat Singh Rawat's comment on ripped jeans and sanskar. Was he expressing his trust in his faith with logic? Does he has the right to do so? Does he have the right to do so? Are people bashing him, infringing upon his right of faith? So,
See, he wanted to say something which he was actually not equipped to do. How to say
okay,
that? We will demonstrate to you in the next week. And
okay,
I have a dialogue. I have already scheduled a dialogue with Professor Bharat Gupta
okay,
on the role of mm, a dress in a civilization.
yes,
So I think that will give you sufficient ammunition to uh, take on these people. Of course, the poor fellow doesn't know how to talk, so what to do? He's been putting his foot in mouth every time he opens it.
sad. Also,
And
there is this question
I
from
will
Aruna.
I will do exactly the same critique of
Okay,
jeans, of ripped jeans, but I will challenge people to engage with me. I will do it in a different idiom, in a different language, and with logic and rationale.
yes. IITs in India are getting Abrahamanized. This is again a question from Arun RT. So, what can we
That
do
is because
about
of
it?
that stupid thing that they have done. They have opened those humanities sections in the IITs. I think this liberal arts business, if I could help it, I think I would simply delegitimize all liberal arts.
It's
Give them
neither liberal nor arts. That's the sad
not
part.
arts, exactly.
It's neither liberal nor arts. It is
Yes,
actually a farcical spread of knowledge. It should be
It
called
is,
SSK.
they're teaching fascism in the name
Yeah,
of liberal arts.
right.
right. So I think beautiful questions, and the entire session was threw light on several things which probably many of the people in the today's viewers, for them it was new, and many of them are already probably Jaipur Dialogue regular viewers. Very nice to have you here. Thank you so much, Sanjay ji and Vibhuti ji. You, as always, you enrich any moment when for the people who you are with.
And
When
yes,
we are, I'm
Thank
watching
you.
it
I
absolutely.
can always offer my services. We can always uh, put this on Jaipur Dialogues as well so that it can get a larger footprint.
Absolutely, absolutely. We need to again probably get together again. Some other series of questions I'll come up with, and we need to have this discussion more often so that we can reach out to more people. So I request you to come often whenever it's possible for you. We'll
One
discuss that.
final word as a full disclosure, Sanjay ji and myself, we have set up already Jaipur Dialogues USA. And
Yes,
I congratulate you, Girija, for starting this entire thing. My thought process is we all have defined time. Let
yeah,
the tribe increase. Let more and more
yes,
people speak. Let the knowledge
yes,
spread. Let the light spread. And this is
yes.
the moment. I believe this
That's
is the moment for us to do without having to proselytize, but let's do
yes.
spread.
But
So,
why
That's
not
a very idea of doing it.
yeah.
We
And
know that many people
proselytize?
are doing it, but it's not reaching enough number of people.
I would like to proselytize. I want to convert.
that's a conversation for another day.
I want to tell them that they're living in untruth. Whatever being told to them is all unscientific. In the media platform, I have no hesitation talking to them like that.
That is very lovely. Certainly, I think we have to call this spade a spade, right? Yes, I absolutely enjoyed this session. And I was totally tongue tied at many of the times when you were talking. I must admit to that, which always happens when I'm just listening to you. I note down many things and then I go back and read. So definitely you are reaching out to many people, sitting in our living rooms. If we are getting so much information, we are very full of gratitude for you. I'm sure that you spend so many hours, you have read and for years and years, and then you bring out a book, and then we are able to listen to that and read that. Thank you so much. I encourage all the readers, or rather, I will entreat all of you, please read the books, buy the books, read them yourself, and share it with the young people in your family, so that you make a huge difference. That is the only way. Whatever we are leaving to our youngsters is only that which is going to stay. Not the car that you buy for them, not the house that you buy for them. They are going to buy better things and say this is bullshit. So please let us not look at those things. Absolutely. So this is the only thing that we are going to be remembered for. So let us do this for our children. Thank you so much, Sanjay.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you, Vibhuti ji. Thank you,
Thank you,
Thank
Dixit
you,
ji.
Sanjay.
Varun.
Again. Thank you.
And thank you, all the viewers.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll end the broadcast. Good night, viewers, and a good day to all of you.